A topic I've been wanting to address for some time and haven't got around to it, and I think now is an appropriate time, is this ongoing effort in Congress, which seems to be gaining some momentum, to basically ban trading in individual stocks and other securities by members of Congress, House and Senate. And although this seems to be very popular, I'm kind of like, why? To me, this is a bad idea. I see it as sort of fundamentally kind of anti-capitalist, actually. Uh, I mean, and in addition to that, I understand the bill that's being proposed will also ban, well, of course, spouses, but also children. And that I think is even more egregious in my opinion, because after all, a child can't. A child doesn't necessarily mean like somebody under 18 living at home either. I mean, it could be some of these people are quite 60s and 70s, and could be full-grown adults. And let's say that somebody in their family decides to run for Congress, all of a sudden you're banned from owning investments that you would otherwise be allowed to have. And why? I mean, I think this is just strange. And I noticed that one thing that's not being banned is real estate. And of course, I think there's a lot more subterfuge in real estate involving politicians by far than in the stock market, which is much more volatile and much more competitive. I think the real estate offenses that you sort of see, I can think of some things where basically the the politicians are in the political circle and may have some heads up that a certain piece of real estate is liable to be rezoned commercial from being residential or something, or agricultural, and they go off and buy this land, and then it gets rezoned into something where in a few years it becomes far more valuable. I think that's far more common than somebody somehow beating the people on Wall Street and all the financial analysts in a stock pick. I mean, and I know the Nancy Pelosi thing, which is really, she's saying it's her husband, has been successful in the market. I have no idea what his background, or is he really a good market analyst? Does he have a really good broker? Or is it really that information that Nancy Pelosi gives him that does it? I'm skeptical. I mean, first of all, let's understand that members of Congress probably don't have more information than a typical hedge fund manager or let's say the big name brokers, would have, or just astute market followers, who may be just middle class people investing. And I think that's understand that the concept, the legal issue of what's called inside information, inside trading, was about the issue of the idea that companies should release the information that's going to be disclosed in a quarterly report or some other financial statement in a way where everybody has more or less an equal access if they're paying attention to getting it. Obviously, everybody's never going to have equal access in reality because most people aren't paying attention. They aren't subscribed to, they're not watching CNBC or Fox Business all the time, or having those kind of services that are available for some fees, right? And so I think that's what it is. So this would be like if there's going to be an earnings report, which would be a surprise, or if there's going to be a takeover of another company, or any of those kind of decisions that the management knows about. And if it's leaked to the public illegally and somebody trades on it, that's where you have a crime. That's what that means. But the idea that Congress tends to have that information more than other people, I think, is really unlikely. And if they do have, it's illegal already, meaning that somebody in the company actually told them about it. And I mean, you could always say that, well, some bill that might or might not be passing would give them a little bit of an inside track. But I can assure you that the people on Wall Street are following this very carefully and probably know about it and act on it much quicker than a member of Congress is likely to. So I think this is generally a case of people, where there's been a few people of the opposite party that apparently somehow had some success in the market. All of a sudden, it's like, well, let's ban everybody because we're more moral than everybody else, and we haven't had any success. You see what I'm saying? I think this is just trying to appear to be more moral than the other person when you probably aren't necessarily, or maybe you just don't have the skill to do it anyhow. So you're one of, but now let's get back to the children. I mean, we're not talking about in general, people that are living at home under, 18 years old and under that are complete dependents. We're talking about people probably that have well past their education, whatever it is, maybe own their own businesses or whatever else, or they're, who knows, maybe they actually work in the financial industries or something. In other words, why would these children be banned? The assumption is, I guess, the parents are telling them things that they need to know that nobody else knows. But do they really? Because I say anything that's actually happening in Congress, I think is pretty well being followed pretty closely by financial news anyhow. So anyway, that's just kind of my little pitch on it, and I think that this is one of those things where they all get forced into, well, we got to do this, we will look bad if we don't, and I think that that's really not the situation. I think particularly affecting dependent children, which I mean children, we're talking maybe 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, so in many cases, 30 people are on their own, have their own life, and may not even vote for the person that their parent is actually, they may be of a different political persuasion. There are cases like that. Particularly, it seems like it happens to the Republicans more than to the Democrats, but it does happen. So, at any rate, I'm against those bills, and I've registered my comments on X a couple of times on this. It doesn't mean I dislike the particular people that are promoting them. In general, there's people I probably support some of the other things they're doing. But this is one I think is just not the best idea. I see it's overkill and not necessary. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. If if you like these videos, you can of course subscribe as always, and you can follow me on my social media accounts in the description below. I'm on YouTube and Rumble, and of course the address for Rumble is also in the description below. So all for now.